This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. And I actually am super excited about this because my favorite entrepreneur is a socialpreneur. Wes Moore is the CEO of Robinhood, one of the largest anti-poverty forces in the world, not just the nation right now. Best-selling author, of course, combat combat veteran since he was 13 years old. He's been a combat veteran. We'll get into that. But welcome to the Playbook, Wes. How are you?
And it is such a pleasure to be with you. Seriously, I'm a big fan of you and all your work. So it's an honor to be on this with you. So thanks.
Well, I've been a fan of yours since Colleen. I was speaking in Portugal. Colleen is the president of my company, and she came to Portugal and said, "Oh my God, there was only one English channel, and I met this guy Wes on TV. He's incredible. Dave, you need to get him on your podcast." And so we've been working for months and months and months to get our schedules together. And thank goodness, virtually, it's so much easier.
Thank you. Well, it's a joy. It's a joy, and she is a gem. So I'm really
Awesome.
glad we made this happen.
Well, I love options and transitions, and especially when they come from a compassionate capitalist. Like so many people that are successful in helping others, you come from a very traditional background, right? Your mom sent you to military school. You learned a bunch of things. My dad used to tell me, point to somebody that was in a really poor position, and he'd say, you're one bad decision, Dave, from being right there. And I said, yeah, but I'm one good decision from not being there too.
There you
And
go.
make mistakes. And he would laugh at me, rub my head. He goes, I don't know where you get this from. It's innate in my being. I have a financial background that money is an object of energy. So do you. And you have reached the highest levels, academia, in the military, Condoleezza, Oprah. You surround yourself with the right people. But I really want to get to the core of people who must be what they can be, regardless of where they end up. Where did that shift from your parents sending you, to military school because you had some obedience issues, into this desire that you must be what you can be?
It's one of these things where I feel like as a kid, and even a lot of the challenges and struggles, that I had as I was coming up, they came from a place of wanting to be seen, right? Wanting to be heard. And actually, I think at its core, for so many of our young people, and now we spend really a lifetime working on these issues, for so many of our kids and for so many young people, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about people who just simply want to be heard and understood and see their place in all of this. And there's different ways that people strive to get it. There's different ways that people receive that kind of that attention and that connection. And I think part of my challenge as I was coming up was I just was consistently looking for that connection and attention from places that was, where I'd say I spent a whole lot of time hurting people that actually did love me so I could impress people that could care less about me. And that became a really complicated and challenging dynamic. And I think where it also ended me up in a lot of places that I both shouldn't have been in, but then also a lot of places that eventually, gave me a sense of perspective about the life that I was living and the things that I needed to change around. I mean, I get sent to military school, when I was 13 years old. I first had handcuffs on my wrist when I was 11. And so I found myself really in this place, in this space where I was coming up in a neighborhood that was I felt intentionally neglected. And I found myself then falling into a very similar pattern where second chances become last chances real quick for a lot of kids who were coming up in areas that I came up in. And so, but it really took that sense of perspective, separation, and personal involvement from other people to be able to help me to understand that some of the things that I saw as deficits were actually some of my biggest assets. But that took time for me to really get that mental appreciation, understanding of it.
It's interesting you say that because I had an interesting conversation with one of my heroes. My Oprah was Deepak Chopra yesterday.
Yeah.
And we talked about existence and that so many people take for granted existence. And you've transitioned your entire career to help people exist. And I think it's really crucial in these times of compressed certainty that we're living in, that we look at the idea of, so many of, I grew up like you, right? 6 kids, single mom, packed dinner in a paper bag so she could work 2 jobs. And I sought attention because I always say I'm blessed that my siblings were like super students, because for me to get attention, all I had to do was be different, like athletic different. And I wasn't even that good, but compared to my untalented family, I look like a superstar athlete. But I had to fight for existence every day, and I've never lost that appreciation. You know, being able to appreciate our existence, Wes, is a true asset. You know, I always joke around when I'm stepping on stages now, and I'm like, who here with nothing? And half the crowd raises their hand. I'm like, I feel sorry for the rest of you, because we truly know what it's just like to appreciate existence and having food, the necessities, as you fight poverty and be able to give people enough so that they have a place to have 2 feet on the ground, lion. And if we're not feeding legs, how are we going to feed anyone else? And we cut the legs out from, like you said, from kids. You were 11 years old and your legs were cut out from under you. What was the catalyst? I see so many athletes do this. You reach the highest echelons of academics and military, you know, Rhodes Scholar, and you chose, instead of, you know, the banking world and finance and Wall Street and 7 figures, you decide, you know what, I'm going to utilize my superpowers to help others exist so that they have a statistical chance. What was that transition or catalyst in your life that like awakened you?
You know, I remember the moment when I was, you know, so I joined the military when I was 17 years old. In fact, I wasn't old enough to join on my own. I needed to have my mom sign the papers for me. And so literally, in fact, the first time when she actually signed the papers, I gave her the papers, and she was like, you know, I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, it's, you know, papers for me, because I was in military school. She was like, well, that was a good experience. Let me just continue. She had no idea that she was actually setting me up to join the military. And I joined the military when it was like a relatively quiet time, during 1996 when I joined, 98 when I got a commission, and then obviously in 2001, the whole world changed. And I remember that moment when I was working in finance. I just finished my Rhodes Scholarship. I was working in finance in London, and I got a phone call from a mentor of mine, one of my best friends. He was one of the groomsmen in my wedding. And he called me up, and he was down in Fort Bragg, North Carolina with the 82nd Airborne, getting ready to figure out their next deployment, while I was sitting in England doing banking. And numbers and that type of thing. Finance actually came relatively, even though I didn't have background in it, that stuff actually comes more naturally easy to me than even like, you know, words. I'm more quantitative and qualitative. That's just more natural. And he called me up and he said, how's it going? And I said, it's going okay. And he said to me, when are you going to join the fight? And it was indicting, because I knew exactly what he meant. What he meant was, you know, ever since I was 17 years old, I'd signed up to serve. And, as an athlete, it's where it's like, you know, you go through preseason, and then finally the season's here and you're not playing. And you're like, I went through all this preseason. I went through 2-a-days. I went through all this stuff. I hit the weight room twice a day. And now the season's here. And I'm just like, I'm good. And it was something that really struck me, because I knew in his question, his ask was, it wasn't just about when am I going to go put a uniform back on, and when am I going to go back to the service. And I eventually did. I went and I signed up, went to the 82nd, and I deployed actually with the unit over in Afghanistan. But it was a bigger question than that. The question he was asking me was, at what point are you going to follow what your heart has been screaming at you to do? Where in your heart, you know what matters. In your heart, you know what makes your heart beat faster. In your heart, you know the things that give you energy, that give you rise. And at what point are you going to honor that? And I literally went back, and I remember exactly where I was. I hung up the phone, and just days later, I went back and I thought about it. And I in fact, I told both at that time my girlfriend, who eventually became my fiance, eventually my wife, and also I told my bosses that, I was called up. I wasn't called up. The truth is that I requested, and I actually did a by name request to go join the 82nd Airborne to go deploy with them. Because his point about when are you going to join the fight was about much more than just when are you going to put on the uniform and put on the double A's on your shoulder and come deploy with us. It was about when are you going to honor what's inside of you, what's been screaming to you for a very long time. And so that moment was actually important for me, and it was very clarifying for me, because I think at that moment I started to go through my own process and my own evolution, that you can't ignore that for but so long. You know, I understand the whole idea about sometimes we have to do things that we have to do, or, you know, for family reasons, et cetera. And I remember actually when I was getting ready to go back into the world of finance, another mentor of mine actually said to me when he asked what I wanted to do, and he said, why do you want to go back into finance? And I said, well, you know, I think really smart people work there, and I have a natural knack for it and all that kind of stuff. And he said, you know, I'll never question what you do for your family, particularly when it's for your family. The only thing I ask is that when you're ready to leave, leave. Because every day you stay doing something that you're not passionate about, you become extraordinarily ordinary. And that became my process, where I never wanted to be extraordinarily ordinary.
It's interesting, you know, because you also have to go through a transition. My wife told me when I hit rock bottom was 2 years before I lost everything, you know, told me to take stock in who I was, right? She challenged me to vote for who I was. She said, you're voting for what everybody else wants, whatever, right? All these things you're voting for. Vote for what you want, man, or I'm leaving, right? It was a different situation. I think about the other similarity is so many people think they're putting their family first by taking those jobs, right? They do. And I was one of them until very recently, even though I had gone through great recoveries in my life and great enlightenment and help and serve and shifted the paradigm of value in my life like you, I still didn't get that one point until my wife told me once again, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of others. And taking care of yourself is voting for what you want, and everything else will come. And you decided to vote for existence, for helping others exist and to propel them with opportunities and options. I'm a huge opportunity and option person. People say, how could you keep on being so successful your whole life? And, you know, even after you lost everything right away, I said, because all I looked for was to have a multitude of opportunities that find the one that most align with my values. And I take inventory and vote for my values. For you, you had multitudes of opportunities and you chose one that was kind of the antithesis of Wall Street. You know, you were going down to the poverty, down to the dirt, and helping those that couldn't help themselves as Robin Hood. Why did you choose Robin Hood, you know, with the analogy of, you know, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, or coming through you? Is there a certain perspective you have of being Robin Hood?
Yeah, well, you know, I think when I look at my career and I look at my journey, you know, I've been able to see you know, American enterprise from every single vantage point, right? I've seen it from the public sector and with the military. I saw it as a social entrepreneur and running and building and founding a venture-backed platform that was venture required. I saw it from working in finance and working, you know, in companies that are literally moving trillions of dollars. You know, I saw it from philanthropy, and the thing that I really wanted to see and understand, when you think about the heft and the power of Robin Hood. You know, Robin is a 32-year-old organization that started off making about $40,000 worth of grants, and now we've distributed around $3 billion into the poverty fight. You know, we're one of the largest anti-poverty nonprofits in America. And so running an organization of that size and of that enormity with a direct focus on making sure that we can help to lift households out of poverty was something that I wasn't just passionate about as a cause, but also I thought about the fact that when I first moved up to New York after my father died, one of the first neighborhoods that Robin Hood invested in was the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so there's a very personal connection that I have to this work, and a very personal connection that I have to this fight. And I think about it in context of even where we are right now, of this community and this environment, where the truth is that even before COVID-19, you know, we had where even before COVID-19, over 40% of all people could not afford a $400 shock to their system. I mean, think about that, you know, almost half. When you think about the fact that half of New York City experienced at least a year of poverty over the past 4 years. And so when you think about that dynamic, when you think about those things, and this is before COVID-19, this is before the economic devastation that we are now seeing, and the fact that we have watched essentially 11 years of job growth that has taken place, that is now gone in 3 weeks. 11 years of job growth gone, 3 weeks. But before then, we had people who were living in this chronic and very predictable state of poverty. And so the idea of running this organization, of leading this organization, and now, frankly, leading this organization in a time of dire crisis in our field and in our work and in society, I think it just think about what it means to be in the right seat at the right time. I remember when, people sometimes ask, how were you prepared to run an organization like this after your time in the military and time in finance? And I said, listen, when I was leading soldiers in Afghanistan, I was not leading soldiers in Afghanistan thinking to myself, man, this is gonna be really good when I run a foundation one day. Right? or when I was working in finance and I was, doing buy side deals, I wasn't thinking, man, this is gonna be so good when I run a foundation. I was just doing my best with where I was, not realizing that all of those skills that I learned when I was leading troops, when I was leading paratroopers in combat, when I was leading groups in finance, when I was starting a social enterprise, I use all those skills every day now in my work and leading our organization. And so the thing that I find myself really thinking about now in the presence of this really unprecedented crisis that we're experiencing when it comes to the speed that this thing has hit our communities, and when it comes to the long, long levels of devastation that this thing is going to leave, even as we're going on months and years into the future, I also feel that everything that I have done and everything I've experienced in my life has made me uniquely prepared to sit in this seat and uniquely prepared to lead an organization and hopefully a community, be a part of leading a community through something that has just been absolutely unraveling for so many of us.
Yeah, and have you as a leader on the sideline coaching the teams, because there's a saying, I use football analogies all the time with Warren Moon is my business partner. I'm always saying we're only in the first quarter of this ball game. And if you played football before, you don't know what happens in the second quarter, at halftime, third quarter. We don't know. And so that uncertainty is one thing, but the one thing that applies to what you have been able to do already, and I hope people can appreciate this as we move to the other quarters in support of Robin Hood and your relief fund that you've created right now, is there's a saying in football especially, the ball will always find the weakest player. And I'm the chairman of Unstoppable Foundation, mostly in Africa. And people would ask me, why you spend so much time in Africa? We at home. I said, look, I give, Warren has a Crescent Moon. We give college scholarships here. This is in America, boys and girls. I've done junior achievement around the world, but the ball's going to find the weakest players. And if, it's in Africa right now, then we're going to support that as well as at home with the poverty that we have. But what you're doing is so critical, because a lot of people are elitist. A lot of people have no perception of existence. They have no perception of the long-term effects. They're so stuck in a microcosmic world, in a microcosmic view of what's going on. And I really want to press upon everyone and share with your opinion of what we can do today to help strengthen the weakest players, because that's going to make the difference in the next 10 years. I'm not talking 1 year, right? Because we don't even know. Until you get a vaccine, we don't even know the effects. The effects won't stop happening until we have a vaccine. That's the stop. And then we can start preparing for what. But what can we do today to support, the weakest players on our team right now, the ones that need food, housing, all of these things? What can we do specifically? Because that, in my opinion, two waves come together, they rise. Yes. And the tides will all rise. I believe in elevating others to elevate myself. And really wanted to have you on here for this answer of what can everyone do today to help rise those tides and strengthen our weakest players.
I love this question. And I think the thing that we're asking everybody to do right now is to find that skill set that you have that is unmatched and utilize that. And what I mean by that is this, I'm looking for athletes that are ready to adapt into their different situations in their different ways. You know, there's some people who the greatest strength they have right now in this work and in this fight is they're like, I can be a philanthropist. I can write a check. And that's a great asset and that's a great tool. And if that, what you feel is your best contribution right now, then you should go ahead and do that. And there are some people who say, you know what, I'm a sweat equity kind of person. I'm not a philanthropist. I'm not a check writer, but you know what? I dig into an issue and I know I can work hard on being able to mobilize people around something. I fire people up. Then great. Let us utilize that. Take that talent, take that skill and bring that to the fight. There's some people, we're watching a situation right now where we have children who, as they've closed schools, people talk about this idea of a summer learning gap, right? What happens during those summer months for kids who do not have structured environments, where oftentimes it can take them till November to catch up where they left off in June. What happens if it's not June? What happens if we have kids who haven't been in school since February? We are watching this massive schism of kids who are in classrooms prepared and not prepared. There are some people who their greatest skill set is, listen, I can be a virtual tutor in a subject and I can find ways of helping kids. I can find ways of volunteering in different things. Find that thing that makes your heart beat a little bit faster. Find that thing that is going to be your thing, that you're going to spend your time, your treasure, your thought leadership, your resources, whatever it is, to be able to make the world better. Because the challenge that I think oftentimes we have is we try to put people all into singular boxes as to what they can contribute and what they can do. And that is so fundamentally dangerous, not just because you're not taking the greatest assets that people have, but also every one of us, the work that we are in, this is hard work. And there are days that are not easy days. One thing I tell my team all the time is that, the one guarantee that you're going to have is that every day your heart will be filled and your heart will be broken. Every day. And you have to be okay with that, right? But to know that, to experience that means you'd better be doing something that makes your heart beat a little bit faster. And if you can do that, then the contribution that each one of us can make is going to be real and sustainable and important. But you've got to find what that thing is and find a way for you to fit into that team in a unique way that's going to make you invaluable.
That's beautiful. I think people can make room for what they want by utilizing their superpowers. I focus on these three things that you keep talking about. One, skills. And I don't think it's just for philanthropy, that if you're not developing skills right now, right? Most of the people that are 30 and under have never seen a job market that has even been stressed, let alone depressive. Right? There's an unemployment rate that hasn't been seen since the Great Depression. And most of the people 30 and under have only experienced, I can just get another job because I have a pulse. And it's been frustrating as an employer to see that attitude, because I was around when I was hiring engineers for 200 grand out of junior year in college, and then they had to ask for $30,000 jobs when the internet boom busted. But the idea behind what you're saying is everyone should be developing skills. And the way we develop them is to practice those skills and acquire the knowledge. How do we acquire the knowledge? By practicing and asking for help, and by doing these philanthropic good deeds has the most important effect, in my opinion. And I tell people that are depressed, hopeless, anxious, and I don't know what to do, Dave. What should I do? I said, go volunteer. Right? Go make room for what you want, because the only healer of all, you can't tell someone that's depressed to go look at the glass half full, but I can tell someone that's depressed, go help somebody, and I will guarantee you that they'll feel good. They'll instantly feel good. It's the only pure healing thing. And if you can combine skills with the knowledge and enhance and develop your desire along with it, wow, you're making room for what you want. I can't see any reason why anyone doesn't pick up the phone right now for whatever they believe in, whether it's the New York, Robin Hood Relief Fund or whatever they believe in. We all should be giving right now everything that we have to make room for what we want, and it will come. I promise you, in your perspective, as you and I finish up one question, we live in a world of not enough, right? And we were victims. Right? We acted out. There's not enough for anybody around us. Then we lived in a world of just enough for me. Very filled world. We could buy whatever we want, keep on buying what we want, impressing people that we don't like, and buying things that we don't need. And then we moved to the world of more than enough. And what I'm so excited about this opportunity that we live in right now is that we all have an opportunity to live in an abundant world where there's more than enough of everything for everyone. It allows us to take inventory and give what we have. Like you said, if it's writing a check, then write the check. If it's you have a superpower of telephone, then use the telephone. If you have a superpower of knocking on doors or handing out food or giving, virtual hugs, whatever it is, that's what we need you to do. Taking it to the next level, you have been in a journey of lessons. And I love to end with this, to extract extraordinary knowledge from people I get the opportunity to be with. What's the greatest lesson you've learned them throughout your whole journey, but in this compressed time? What's the one lesson that either has surprised you or has reappeared in your life that you didn't remember, that you really have grabbed onto and said, man, this is the lesson to learn?
I think about right before I left for Afghanistan, my grandparents, my grandfather actually passed while I was in Afghanistan. And my grandmother is still around now, living in Baltimore, 92 years old. And right before I left for Afghanistan, they gave me a Bible. And it was one of those little pocket Bibles. So it was big enough that actually I could fit in my flak vest. So I brought it out on every mission. It slid right in a pocket of the flak vest. The flak vest is like a basic bulletproof vest. And it sat right over my heart on my bulletproof vest, every mission I went out on. And inside this little Bible, they wrote the words, "Have faith, not fear." And I remember before I'd go on every mission, I would actually recite that over and over and over again before I go on missions. Just have faith, not fear, have faith, not fear, have faith, not fear, have faith, not fear. And I still actually do it, where if I'm going into any situation that I might feel a little bit uncertain, or going into a meeting that I really need to go well, or whatever the case is, have faith, not fear. Have faith, not fear. And I think it's something that I think in this moment, we're in very scary times for a lot of people. We're in times of complete uncertainty. We're in times where we're watching, and it's to the point it's almost even audible. You can hear dreams shattering audibly all around us. The lives that people thought they were going to live, they're not living. And they don't see a prospect to live those lives anymore. The thing that I lean on, the thing that I would ask other people to lean on as hard as you can, is in this moment and in every moment, have faith, not fear. Because the worst decisions you will ever make in your life are decisions that are motivated by fear. The best decisions that you will ever make in your life are decisions that are motivated by faith. And how we approach this moment in our environment, this moment in our era, in our lifetimes, in our society, I think if we lead from a place of love and faith, we're going to end up in a much better place than if we lead from a place of fear.
That's awesome. And thank you for giving so many of us faith. And it takes everyone to join in and to learn from each other and help each other. Ask for help and offer help is a key to that faith, in my opinion, of knowing the oneness of everyone. So I also just want to make an ask of you, as I'm recruiting people over 90 years old to bring onto my lives, to ask them one simple question. So if your grandma or anyone you know wants to join me, I just want to ask, what's the secret of life? I think it's important.
I love it.
It's an underutilized asset. So I'm trying to recruit as many 90-year-olds as over to give me the secrets of life. And so if you know any, or your grandma wants to come on, please reach me. Everyone out there.
I will follow through that. I love that. That's beautiful.
Cool. Well, I got Wes Moore. Please join the Robin Hood New York Relief Fund, of course, the Robin Hood charity itself, and let's fight anti-poverty in the United States. Let's raise the tides of all with faith, not fear. Thank you so much, Wes Moore, for joining me, David Meltzer, on Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.